At the start of August, I had a weekend of retro goodness. I did about 430 miles in the end. I'm going to see why soon. I've been asked by Chris to run an adventure stand at the Zap Live 2023 in Kenilworth. Originally, Stefan was going to try and come over and help, but he wasn't able to make it, which is a shame, but I did show off some of his games. The layout of the bill is it's the Holiday Inn hotel there. It's really good actually. So two main rooms which had the Amiga and the Commodore 64 mostly, and they had a fusion area plus extra stuff set up in a restaurant and things. So it was really good. So prep started a bit early. I dug my Amiga out, realised I hadn't snipped the battery out. Looks like I saved it just in time. If you haven't looked at your battery in your Amiga, get it out. It was alright on the other side, so I snipped that out. Doesn't affect the performance. Next one was the Commodore 64. Started playing up. I had to actually swap this chip. The basic ROM was showing an error. Everything else was working fine, so that's good. I passed all the tests once it was all done, which was excellent. I haven't got a harness on, which is why some of the connectors are showing wrong. I was a bit worried about my power supply. I thought the AC had failed on it, which is why I've got an alternate plug here. But as it turns out, it was fine. It was just a loose wire, but I couldn't really take that to the show as it was. I was hoping to buy a new PSU there. Shouldn't really be running Commodores for a long time, but to play fair with a repair to make it safe for a show use, it ran all day and was fine. The actual problem I had was with the TV, which started playing up. Looks like it got a bit shook up on the way up there. CRTs don't travel well, but it was working fine when I left, and we're able to load tapes. I also had my SD to IEC for loading rather than taking a full drive along. I did take the tape drive in case I wanted to load anything, which might prove lucky, foreshadowing there. So that was it. It was off to Zap Live 2023, and I'd been given a space here which is right next to an exit in the corner room, so it was a bit out of the way, and a lot of people thought it was just part of Mr. Pleasance's stands and his books because he had to display there. But we had a fair number of people come and have a chat and have a look round, which was quite good. I didn't really get a chance to do much though. A few people did watch the stall for me. I have to shout out to Neil and to Mr. Robbins, who both watched it for half hour or so while I went coffee, beer, and had a little look around the show myself. So this is the sort of setup coming into the door. I was lucky enough to get a parking space pretty much just around the corner from here. Wasn't easy with the screen for the competitions to set up, but we got there in the end, and I had quite a nice little setup with the Amiga, a selection of programs and software for various machines. I took along original Infocom, a copy of Mindfighter from the Amiga, the Quill. I took along GAC as well, obviously, an Illustrator. I took along Stefan's Hibernated and a Curse of Ravenstein. This is the American one. So it was pretty much a typical show. Unfortunately, when I got there, my SD to IEC didn't work, and I later discovered why when I got home, is this connector had crushed in a lot of the pins and shorted ground to 5 volts. I managed to pull out a load of the broken parts and just get enough touch in so it just connects to the 5 volt connector, because the actual ground is done through the IEC port, I think. Luckily enough, Mr. Wilkins was able to loan me one for the day, so all was not lost. I just moved my SD card into that. So that was great, otherwise I'd have been loading the handful of tapes I had all day. As I said though, the TV was playing up, so I had to keep that on and off. It's obviously something knocked a bit loose. CRTs don't travel well, as I said. I had a quick nose around before people were still setting up, and I've caught a little bit of video and a few photos. This was lovely, I thought. Sort of iconic TV and Scalextric setup to draw you into the initial Zap Live event. That was great. So just a few of the photos to a bit more detail on that quick spin video to show the room layout. So they had obviously a CD 32 working.
Alright.
You got it, yours on manual gears.
The audio was done in good selection of parts from Amigas as well. Not a sort of scene I'm heavily involved in with the Amiga, to be honest. I've been recovering and playing with my Amiga slowly. Quite a few user groups in the Amiga room, as I said, the Yorkshire Amiga group. This was a good collection. You would have seen them on the video go past of the different bigger box Amigas. This one especially was the Amiga 1500, was quite fascinating. Never seen one of those before. So really good to see all these machines on display. And obviously A500 Mini and a couple of Raspberry Pi ones as well. They were also on this stand running out. I photographed this because I've actually got the single tape version of this stereo. It's what I used to use back in the day. You might have seen it occasionally at retro shows. I sometimes take it along as my amp because it's got phono inputs on the back. And there we were playing a game, 8-player game of Bomb Jack, I think it was. So obviously took some shots of the Immortal joystick stands, a really well made product. Bought a copy of Revolution for the Tony Warren. This was a shot of the Fusion Zone with the various arcade machines. Obviously the Retro Collective, the Arcade Archive showing a presence. Milling around. They had the cafeteria area was set up with a few machines. I had a good play on a Vectrex. I do love Vectrexes. Nice 689 machine. They had a cracking Star Wars in the Fusion Zone, walking back towards the Commodore section now. I'm surprised how effective these LCD tables are. It's pretty impressive to play, actually. And obviously a classic Asteroids. It was a shame the Missile Command wasn't working. A really nice collection of Archer McLean memorabilia in these stands on displays. Brilliant, nice to see it. And obviously a good selection of machines, the unusual ones, the VIC-20. This was a Commodore I hadn't come across as well. So it was, a really good selection of music, software, massive selection of software for sale. A really good display of machines and historical machines as well, and some with memorabilia from RCM. Lovely chat to Andy again. This was definitely one I hadn't come across before, a Commodore 64 in a box like that. And another shot of Andy's collection. I loved that modem and the calculator, and his calculator collection. Excellent stuff. In fact, I took a close-up of it. You have to put your old handset in there so you could get a good audio connection. I actually ran quite a few games through the day. This was actually running off of one of my discs. I'm recovering from the Amiga set. This was running, I think, Parisian Nights, which was a game that Fergus was working on back in the day to follow up from Mindfighter with Swan. And I loaded it mainly to show the Icon-based system that I couldn't get my Mindfighter to run. It's got a protected disc, and I've got a Gotek in the Amiga. And normally I can get it running with an actual drive, but here we go, we can't have everything. As you can see, I was quite close to Mr. Pleasance, and right behind the stage, so we were a little bit out of sight, and a few people mentioned they hadn't seen me. But yeah, it was a pleasant day, and we watched each other stand, or we had to get a coffee and things. So I did buy a copy of his book, which I've been told is a very good read, the first one, so should look forward to that. All in all then, a pretty successful day. I think there was an evening event where they had a screening of the Heart of Neon film and some music sets from John Hare and others. I actually haven't got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and had a long week preparing to go. Was a bit too shattered. I did enjoy the music though from my bedroom window, which was directly over the event. But I had a reasonably early night, read a book, and was a bit bored. I'd have a chat in a bar and a beer with somebody while we were it was going on. But I decided I was going to get down. Was going to miss the Bring and Bite at the Centre for Computing History on the Sunday, because in my mind I thought the Zap event was 2 days. I don't know why. But as it happens, I had an early night, got up early in the morning, and I thought, well, it's only 85 miles on to Cambridge. Let's go down to the Bring and Bite, which is why on this table with my pickups from the Zap event, there are some stuff that's not Commodore related, and you might be surprised but I actually picked up the Commodore items. So I'm going to do another video to cover briefly the Bring and Bite, because I think this one's getting quite long already. But let's have a little look at what I picked up at the Zap event, shall we? Now, I was there running the stand representing Adventures, so I got my little goodie bag, which you'll have a little look. And I had a display of Commodore Adventure World all the way back, including the very earliest Commodore available game, a little bit of information about it, which is on a surprisingly unknown machine. And I took along copies of Quill, Illustrator, GAC as well, obviously, and covered. I did a Commodore 64 and an Amiga, probably on inside of the stand here. And I demonstrated some of the games that were written with Swan for abstract concepts, and also with the modern version of Dard and older things, Dard Easy, and some Osmo and Puny Inform games written with ZIL and the Z interpreter, the old Infocom interpreter. And I had along a couple of original copies. So of Infocom games and games from back in the day, a tape like Lord of the Rings. On the left-hand side of the table is some of the pickups from it. I didn't buy a huge amount, but I did look around for a replacement SD2IC, couldn't find one. So one of the first things I did buy was one of these, Kung Fu Flash, which should allow me to at least load stuff fairly quickly, I think, on the 64. So that'll be an interesting one to have a little play for. I'm sure we'll see a bit of video on that. I also actually had the stand next door to Mr. Pleasance, and I bought his first book on a recommendation of one of the volunteers. It's a good read, so he kindly signed it for me. So should be interesting. I love for history, as you know. I did treat myself to a copy of Zap 64 from back in the day. I didn't really have a lot of those. I was surprised because we did advertise in it, but this one's actually got an advert for GAC, I think, in it. One of the full, yeah, there we go. So the competition. There's nothing from us in there, although there is an adventure. There's a little bit about adventure in it as well. So it was just nice to have a flick through an old copy of Zap. There we are. And you've got the White Wizard. So. With some of his games covered, so yeah, really just nice trip back for the 64 environment. I've got loads of old mags, but not for the 64. The other one I treated myself to was this, Tony Warrener's story of game development from the Revolution, which is quite an interesting one for those who don't know, of course, is that Charles Cecil, who's written a foreword for it, was also one of the people who was involved in Arctic. So this is a very early look at the sort of foundations of one of our contemporaries back in the day. Fascinating little bit of an insight into how they started developing on the future, really, as sort of post-1990s adventure and up to the modern day, pretty much. So it's already an interesting read. I had a crack at it last night. So that was, and as I say, you get as a early bird, you get a little visitor's pack as well, and as an exhibitor they gave me one, which was nice. So very good. There's a Zap Live CD with music in it. I love the effect on it, because if you haven't seen it, it looks just like a little record. Isn't that cute? I should look forward to having a play of that on my CD player. I had a little, specifically an issue of Fusion to read through. I always like having a little crack of those sometimes. And a really nice show guide, which was basically a minis, what's top on the 64. Nice to see I'd taken along Hibernated to demonstrate, and that was in there. So, yeah, it's a good selection of little articles. That's the actual zones laid out. I was actually up here by Mr. Pleasance. It's not marked on the guide list because it was a bit of a last minute. I wasn't sure whether I could make it, but I managed to get there. And the worst games of all time. So, yeah, nice little booklet for those who went along as a memory. And I think there's a little bug badge in there as well, is there? Yeah, a little button. There we go. Hey, little bug, crash bug. So, and I picked up a couple of cards from people. Immortal Joysticks, they were quite impressive. They were there, and some money off of Retro Passion because I wanted to get a replacement PSU, but he sold out of them because I didn't get a chance to go there. It was very busy. I was really pleased. Spectrum Les Neil watched the stand for me to have a little wander around, and so did Retro Robbins for a while, so thanks to those guys. But it is difficult on your own running the stand. So that was the Zap Live pickups. You might be noticing a VIC-20 at the back of this photograph. As I said, I didn't actually pick that up at Zap. There wasn't a lot for sale of retro machines, like things like that, but because I went down to the Bring and Bite in Cambridge, I managed to collect it there. I'd texted someone to go and pick up the Atom that I'd bought, and they were looking after it for me in the Cambridge area till I could get there. So I thought, well, be a useful journey, wouldn't it? But we'll probably cover that in part 2, where we go over the pickups from Bring and Bite in Cambridge, and just take a quick look at the event itself in the second half of this Retro Weekend video. I'm Tim Gilbert, and this is my channel on retro computing.